My mom became pregnant with me when she was 15 years old. And while she was pregnant with me, her father, who was the local trash collector in a small town in central Pennsylvania of around 6,000 people, um, drove into the town square. There, he spotted two police officers. He stuck a gun out the window and opened fire on those police officers, killing one and critically wounding another. And eventually, my grandfather was captured and brought to stand trial where he was facing the death penalty. And my mom testified at her father's murder trial that the reason that her father had shot and killed that police officer was that that police officer had raped her, and she was now pregnant with his baby, who was me. And so that's how my life started.
Welcome everybody to a new episode of Unleash Your Greatness, and today I've got an amazing person on to speak to us, and his name is Nelson Tressler. He is the author of The Unlucky Sperm Club, which is I'm excited for him to explain that because that's a fantastic title. I love it. As well as the CEO and founder of IGotSmarter, and so I'm excited to have him on today and kind of share his story of, he's good to share the story. It's like this amazing soap opera / crazy movie story. So Nelson, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here and sharing your story. So
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to have a great conversation with you.
Yeah. So you and I talked a couple days ago, and you shared a little bit of your backstory, and it literally is this crazy story of, well, I'm going to let you tell the story because you can tell it way better than I can. But I'm excited for you to share that story with, and you're also a successful businessman and coach as well. I wanted to add in there. So super awesome to have you on there because I'm a coach as well. So I think coaching is such a powerful thing that everybody should take advantage of. But I want to turn the time over to you and kind of give a start into your story, and we'll have a discussion about it. So.
Sure. Yeah, no, I definitely have quite the unique origin story. My mom became pregnant with me when she was 15 years old. And while she was pregnant with me, her father, who was the local trash collector in a small town in central Pennsylvania of around 6,000 people, drove into the town square. There, he spotted two police officers. He stuck a gun out the window and opened fire on those police officers, killing one and critically wounding another. And eventually, my grandfather was captured and brought to stand trial where he was facing the death penalty. And my mom testified at her father's murder trial that the reason that her father had shot and killed that police officer was that that police officer had raped her, and she was now pregnant with his baby, who was me. And so that's how my life started. My mom's testimony worked. My grandfather's trial ended in a hung jury. The second trial, they took the death penalty off the table, and my grandfather was eventually sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, where he ended up spending the rest of his life, more than 40 years behind bars, leaving behind me and my mom and his other 14 children in this small town to kind of deal in the wake of everything that he had done.
And your mom was not very old, right? Remind me.
15. She was 15.
Yeah, that's what I thought. She was still a young teenager, and here she has been raped, gone through that traumatic event, then finds out she's pregnant with you, and then her dad is sentenced to jail, to prison time because of the murder of this police officer, which I don't think there's any father out there who would ever say that guy, that your grandfather was in his wrong, in my
Well,
opinion.
yeah,
Maybe you went about it the wrong way, but oh,
yeah, let me preface it. I mean, in my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club, I go into a lot of details. There's a lot of twists and turns from my mom's story and everything that happened in there and in my life. And I don't want to give away everything, but you know, the book is definitely good reading, and there's some twists and turns in there as far as everything that happened to my mom and me.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I can only imagine being a 15-year-old new mom and no dad helping. And she, where did she fall in the 14 kids, like as far as age wise?
She was towards the end. I think there were three or four after her.
Gotcha.
So she was towards the young. Yeah. And I mean, 15, I have my youngest right now is 15 years old. And, sometimes it just smacks me in the face of what my mom had to deal with at that young age. I mean, my 15-year-old, he can't, heat something up in the microwave by himself, or, put away, the milk after he pours it for cereal. And here was my mom, who had been through this and testified at that trial, and had a newborn baby at the age of 15. I mean, my heart goes out for people who are sprung into adulthood, in these types of situations. I can't even imagine what they go through.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so the Unlucky Sperm Club, the book tells your story, and well, starting with your mother and grandfather, and then eventually you being born, and kind of that progression. Uh, the title of the book, you'd almost be like, oh, I have this awful life because of my starting of my life. And but you don't have that outlook on your life, right? I mean, you're very successful. You have amazing things going on. We're going to talk more about your app and things that you've got coming out here in a little bit. But tell me a little bit about why you picked the title of the Unlucky Sperm Club for your book.
Well, yeah, you've heard how life started, but unfortunately, it didn't get any better after that. I'm the son of a 15-year-old mother, and we just talked a little bit about how hard it had to be for her. But eventually, she turned 21 years old. She met a man who would eventually become my stepfather, and come to find out that he was very emotionally and physically abusive to me and my mom, almost on a daily basis, after the time that they got together. And so now I'm dealing with that in my life. And eventually my mom and him have four more children. So there's five of us now. Four of the children are under the age of 5. And because of the lifestyle that my mom and stepdad are living, a lot of the basic needs for my siblings are falling upon me, from feeding and diaper changing to even waking up in the middle of the night to put crying babies back to bed. So now I'm dealing with that. And as you can imagine, that has a huge effect on my life, and schooling. My mom would rather me stay home from school and help her with the kids than go to school. And I hated school anyhow. At this time of my life, I couldn't read, I couldn't write, couldn't spell. So I just hated going to school. I didn't do well there. And I remember at the end of my 4th grade year, I looked down at my report card, and elementary kids are excited to see who they're going to have for homeroom the next year. And I looked down and I realized that, I have straight F's, and I'm not going to be going on to 5th grade. I've flunked the 4th grade, and I shouldn't have been surprised. I probably missed 50 or 60 days of school that year. And it's at this time that the school, places me into special ed to try to get the help that I need. Come to find out, like I said, I couldn't read, couldn't write, couldn't spell. Come to find out I have dyslexia. And, flash forward a little bit more. And one day my stepfather is walking home drunk from a bar, and somebody else is driving home drunk from that bar, and they end up hitting and killing him. And now it's at this time that my mom has dropped out of school in the 8th grade. She's never worked outside of the home. And as hard as her life has been to this point, losing my stepfather and now having that, task of raising 5 young children on her own. It's at this time that my mom decides that, she doesn't want to be here anymore. She can't do it. And she decides to, take her own life. And fortunately, she was not successful in that attempt. But, it was at this time when she got back out of the hospital that she decided that she couldn't do it all on her own. And that's when our family got split up. But that's when I went to go live with my grandmother, who was the wife of the man who shot and killed the police officers. And as I said, she had 15 children. And because of the person that she was, the saint that she was, she's also raising 5 or 6 other grandchildren at this time. And, so I go to live with her. And for the first time in my life, though, I mean, there's always food in the refrigerator. I don't have to worry about somebody coming home drunk and beating me or my mom. I don't have to worry about, taking care of my siblings and waking up in the middle of the night. And the one role that my gram had was, you're going to school. She didn't care how well you did at school, but she said, you're going to school. And that was probably for her sanity, having 15 kids. That was probably her only break ever, was when the kids were in school. And what I realized was, as I went to school, that I wasn't dumb. I wasn't stupid. And as I built up some momentum, I realized that, I could do it. And it was around 7th grade when I'm living with my grandmother that a counselor from the local university came to give us an assembly on what it was going to take to get into college. And that's when I was kind of reflecting upon my life and thinking what direction it was going and where I was heading and what I wanted for my life. And it was kind of like those bells and whistles go off like, hey, if I could graduate college, that would really just, solve all of my problems, because I equated college with making a lot of money and living a different lifestyle. Yeah. But what happens as soon as you set a goal that's going to be hard and going to take a lot of work, that voice in the back of your head starts to scream at you all the reasons that you shouldn't do it. Right. And I remember thinking, Nelson, you're in special ed. You can't read, you can't write, you can't spell, and the family that I came from, of my Graham's 15 children, only 2 had ever graduated from high school. None had ever even attended college. And I start thinking to myself, geez, I'm going to be lucky to graduate high school, let alone graduate from college. But, I decided, life was not, where I wanted it to be. I wasn't enjoying life, and I didn't want this life for me and for my eventual family. So I started to do the things that I thought would get me into college and get me a degree. And to kind of speed along the story, 12 years after kind of setting that goal, even though I didn't even know what a goal was, 12 years later, 4 different universities, 4 years in the Air Force to pay to go to school, I eventually became that first person in my family to graduate from college and get a college degree.
Wow. That's such a journey, and how there's so much there that I love to unpack if I can for a minute. Number one is I can understand, and I think there's quite a few people out there who can understand coming from a childhood with a disability. I had also a mental disability or a learning disability when I was younger. It wasn't quite as severe as dyslexia, but it was a form where I just struggled with reading and spelling and those types of things as well. And so I can totally appreciate coming from that background, because I remember thinking that I was the dumb kid in school, right? My teachers had to give me easier spelling test because I just was awful at spelling. I for some reason, I just could not spell well at all. I couldn't write, or I couldn't read hard. I think probably at 6th grade, I was reading at like a 2nd grade level. It was just a struggle. And luckily I worked at it, and eventually, my learning disability, it kind of solved itself, I guess, if you will. As I got older and into junior high and high school, I got to where I was functioning pretty much at grade level, but it really did a number on my self-esteem, of course, as I think anybody who feels like they're stupid, that dumb kid in school, you know, and so yeah, it's amazing, and I as well am the first person in my family to not graduate from high school, or excuse me, from college. I had other siblings that graduated with either an associate's or bachelor's, but I'm the first one who graduated with a master's degree. And
Awesome.
so uh, that's like you say, when you reach that goal, like that's so amazing, and especially to say that you were the first one to achieve that out of all of your family, all your aunts and uncles and siblings, I'm assuming as well, to achieve that. That's fantastic. So neat, and so kudos to you. I guess what do you feel was the main driver? I mean, you said that you've correlated, college degree to being successful, having money, wealthy, or whatever, right? What drove you? Is that the main thing that drove you, or was there something deeper that maybe drove you to wanting to achieve that goal?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think, the life that I saw for myself, I've always had that knack of looking long term and seeing, kind of understanding that, hey, today is today, but, the choices that I'm making today are going to affect, my life 5, 10, 20 years from now. So I've been very fortunate to have that long term perspective when it comes to life and the decisions that I make. So I think that was one thing that I could envision, that, hey, uh, 20 years is going to come and go no matter what I do. And the choices that I make are going to make a difference. And so I think that helped me. But I also, I mean, I grew up in this small town where I was always that kid. I mean, and you've heard my backstory. There were so many people that thought that I was just going to end up a statistic. I mean, you can rattle them off. A 15-year-old mother, and grandfather is in jail for murder, and a family that has no very few high school degrees and no education, and a disability and dyslexia. I mean, you could just rattle off all the statistics and guess where that kid's going to end up, and then throw on top of that everybody in this small town points at you like you're damaged goods. So I think there was some stuff in there too that I was going to prove them all wrong.
Yeah.
And I think I've always had that edge to my personality, that just tell me I can't do something and I'm going to show you. And not only am I going to do that, but I'm going to be the best, the best that I can be, and the best that's out there. So, I think I've been fortunate enough to have that edge to my personality as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, because I, statistically speaking, I would say you're probably by far blew the statistics out of the water, right? Like you say, all those things that you had going against you, you should be probably in a gang, dead, or in jail, right? For I would think for the most part.
Well, and those were all the things that I would get told, people expected from me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I love the fact that you're like, hey, I want to prove people wrong, because I think that can be a pretty powerful driving force. I know that in my life, I've achieved things because I'm like, I want to prove to others that I can do it. And for me personally, because of the struggles I had with my learning disability, I also said I don't want my kids to think that they are not capable of doing anything if they put their time, energy, and focus into it, and and that they can accomplish anything, just like you proved, right?
Yeah, and I think that's such a powerful thing because in our I Got Smarter program, I mean, one thing that we teach is goals are not just for the person who's accomplishing them. Goals are generational, because the person who achieves this goal, whether it be get a college degree, or a better job, or better health, or whatever, that's going to not only affect them, it's going to affect the generations to follow. And I'm living proof of that, because of that first goal that I set, to graduate from college. I'm living a drastically different life than, people in my family have lived. And, just last week I celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary. And I've got three very productive, young men that me and my wife are raising. And all these things that really I can look back and you know see that one goal that I set, and then everything that kind of picked up momentum from that one goal. Not only am I living a drastically different life, but my family is, and my boys are. So, I mean, that's why I love goals so much, is just the compound effect that it has on generations. And that's what we want to do with I Got Smarter. We see the power of that. And, our kind of motto is that we want to change the world, one person and one goal at a time, by changing that person's world. And as soon as you can change your world, as soon as you start believing in yourself and believing that you can do things, you'll never be the same. And the people around you will never be the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I love the fact that number one, you said, it's you're changing one person at a time, but it's that ripple effect, right? As a drop hits a lake or whatever, that ripple goes out for, you know, way, until it finally maybe dies. But by that time, there's more drops falling, and so it's that ripple effect that you see across generations, like you say. And I also like that you talked about how people, if they understand that they can do those things that are hard, they can be better. Because yeah, I love that. Totally believe it. In the company my wife and I run as coaches, we have a saying called "Be better, do better." So as you be better on the inside and you work on your inside stuff, you do better in the world. You affect the people around you. You can have that ripple effect just go out and
Yeah.
cascade across generations, like you said. So
Yeah, I mean, I Got Smarter as an acronym, and the first letter in there is I, and that's that individual that's staring back at you in the mirror. That is what our full purpose of, self-development is we're working on that individual. We're working on becoming that better version of ourselves, and working on, reaching that potential that lies within each one of us. And that's the thing, is as soon as somebody sees that potential that lies within them, that they see what they are capable of becoming, they will never be the same. They'll never settle for anything less. And I think that was one of the things that kind of started me on my personal development journey, was when I realized, holy cow, I just graduated from college, by setting a goal and working hard at it. And it wasn't easy. I mean, it was 12 years. It was 4 different schools. It was 4 years in the Air Force. It was, washing windows to make money, and having a family and a son, and still graduating, at 27 years old. It wasn't easy. But what I realized was, if I could do this, with one goal, what else could I do? What kind of life could I design by using goals and personal development? And that's when I became obsessed, with goals and personal development. And it's been 20 years since I graduated from college, and I've used goals and personal development in every area of my life to really design and build this life that I couldn't have even imagined. And, like I said, once you realize what that potential is and inside of you, you'll never be the same. You'll never be satisfied with a mediocre life, because we all have that excellence inside of us.
yeah, so true. I mean, that's my whole purpose in doing this podcast and the show, is to help people unleash that greatness within themselves, like you just said. And I love the fact that you said you set goals to design the life that you want, because that's what it's really all about. When I talk about goals, I think people get lost in what a goal really is meant to do. And a goal really is to change a lifestyle, like in
Yeah.
one way or another. That really is, when you look at any goal that anybody sets, it's a change in lifestyle, whether it's a health goal, eating healthier. If it's, I want to go make more money, Guess what? That's a lifestyle change. If you want to go on more vacations with your family, that's a lifestyle change. If you want more relationship or deeper relationship with your kid, your spouse, whoever, that's a lifestyle change. You have to change something. And so, yeah, I love the word that you use, design the life that you want, because you really are creating the lifestyle that you want with your goals. And I think it's important for people to keep that perspective. It's not about like, oh, I'm going to lose 5 pounds so I look better in my bikini this summer. No, do it to create a lifestyle change that's going to be impactful, not only for you, but for the people around you.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that individual, it's about becoming that better version of yourself, because all of these goals that people are shooting for, the one key thing is you need to become that person who can achieve that goal. So when you kind of start looking at, okay, who do I need to become to make more money, to become healthier, to weigh this certain amount of weight, to have these relationships that I want to have. And one of the great things that we use in IGotSmarter is we use an alter ego, and we design this perfect version of ourselves, this person that makes all of the right decisions, and we kind of ask their advice on what they would do, because they always make the right decision. But me, Nelson, hardly ever makes that right decision. He's lazy, and he would rather do the things that are easier. And for example, this morning I have a little carriage house out back of our house where I go in the mornings and work out and kind of get my day started. And my wife texts me and says, "Hey, can you bring in the groceries? We're getting groceries delivered now with the pandemic." And Nelson would have, yeah, I'll get the groceries, and kind of, she could get them. She's upstairs, but I, not only did I get them, Nelson would have, okay, grumbled about getting them and thrown them on the counter. And, he saw the milk and the ice cream there, and, oh, well, she can put them away. I have to get to work. But, Fred, who is my alter ego, Fred says, not only are you going to get it, but Nelson, you're going to put them all away. And I'm sitting there, putting all the eggs away and the milk, and putting the ice cream away and putting everything away, because that's what the perfect version of Nelson would do. That's what Fred, my alter ego, helps me do. And the more Fred choices that I'm making like that, the closer I become to becoming that better version of myself. And as I said here, 20 years later, after, being able to use that alter ego and Fred, and the Nelson is now way past that original Fred. And I keep striving to become that, better version of myself. And it keeps getting, better and better. And it's like a muscle. I mean, originally it's hard to make those right choices and those great choices, but the more that you use it, and the more, Fred type choices or that alter ego choices that you make, the easier it becomes. And again, the closer you come to becoming that version of yourself.
Yeah, awesome. I I love that you talk about growing into that goal, because I feel the same way. I think so many people get lost in the fact that they're like, I need to set a goal that I can accomplish right now. Like, what can I do right now, or what am I capable of doing right now? And the fact of the matter is any goal that's worth going after, any big goal at least, you're not going to be able to accomplish right now. You've got to grow into it. You've got to lean into it, and you got to put yourself out there. And if you focus on only what for instance, one goal I had last year was I wanted to run 1,000 miles during the year. And, for me, that was a pretty big goal, because I'd never run that many miles in a year. I run, but I'm usually a fair weather runner. So when it gets warm in the spring and then until it gets cold in the fall, I usually will run. But then the other time of the year, I kind of slack off and don't do it. So I'm like, I want to stretch myself. So I have to run all year long. Well, if I had said, well, I'm going to go out and run 1,000 miles today, guess what? The probability of me accomplishing that is probably zero, because
Yeah.
there's no way I could run 1,000 miles in one day. But if I stretch that out and I'm like, hey, over the course of a year, I know I can run, when I break it down, 52 weeks, that's less than 20 miles a week. If I do 5 days a week running, that's 4 miles a day. Guess what? That's doable. I can do that. I can reach 1,000 miles in a year, because I work at it, I do it every day, I get up and I'm consistent. But if you just say, hey, I'm going to do this right now today, and I'm going to, you know, I, more than likely you're going to fail because
Can I spin that in a different direction? Because that's one thing in our program too, is you're looking at 1,000 miles, right?
right,
And that seems like it's a huge thing. It doesn't seem possible. It's so big. Your mind has trouble wrapping around that big goal. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, though, is because they look, hey, I want to do this. I want to start my own business. I want to, make $1 million. I want to lose, 40 pounds or run 1,000 miles. But part of the IGotSmarter program is we break everything down into a 4-week sprint. And I understand that, we have to grow into that, but very rarely is there a time where we don't know what that next thing that we can do in order to accomplish our goal is. And I think there's so many people that get stuck, that paralysis by analysis is like, oh my goodness, running 1,000 miles, what the heck, I'm not going to be able to do that. Or, oh, you know what, I'm going to need really good shoes for that. Or I'm going to have to find, whatever. But the one thing that you knew you had to do and that you could do is you could run a mile, or you could run 2 miles, or wherever you were, start where you're at. And it's a lot like walking through fog. So many people they look and or walking up a curved stairway. They can't see where it ends, so they're afraid to start that journey. My advice is start that journey, because rarely do you not know what you can do that next step, and as you walk through fog, all of a sudden, every step that you take, more of that landscape is opened up to you. And then you realize, okay, I did what I knew I need to do. And all of a sudden now I know what I can do next. And, one of our philosophies in IGotSmarter is we don't have we don't have a knowledge problem. We know what we need to do. We have an execution problem. We just don't do what we know we need to do. So I would say start where you're at, and then you'll grow into that person. It's a long journey, but what can you do in the next 4 weeks? What can you do in the next 30 days? You might not get 1,000 miles, but if your overall goal is 1,000 miles and in the next 4 weeks, that you can run 75 miles or something like that, or 50 miles, at least get started where you're at. And then you're closer to that. And in the next 4 weeks, find out, okay, now where am I going to go from here? And you just keep that progress going, because our mind loves progress, but so many people want perfection and it stops them.
yeah. So true. And I love it. It really does come down to just like, you just need to start, right? Start taking action, take the first small step, and then build that momentum up, like you say, because once you start the momentum and the progress starts happening and you start seeing that there's progress, you can build up more momentum and you can keep going and going. So like, going back to my 1,000-mile goal, once I realized like, hey, I ran 90 miles this month. Like I can do this 90 miles in a month. Wasn't horrible. Sure, it stretched me. Sure, it was a little difficult because I had to get up early every day and I had to be committed to that. But it really like wasn't horrible. And so I've got, 11 more months. If I do 90 more miles every month, I'll reach my goal. So, but you like you say, you have to start. And I love that you said so many people want perfection, and because you hear that all the time. Like growing up, you hear that saying, practice makes perfect. Well, I don't think that's true. I think practice makes progress.
Yeah.
And as you practice, you get progress, you get momentum, and you can get better and better every day.
Yeah. And I mean, again, that progress, our brain loves that, and we get those endorphins whenever we get that progress. And that's part of the IGotSmarter program is, getting our brain that dopamine hit as often as we can with these little steps. And we do those 4-week sprints, but we also do milestones,
Yes.
So, let's break it down even further so that we can get another, dopamine hit there. So, maybe you want to have 90 miles in the month, but how many do you want to have in this week, and break it down, okay, you're going to have 25 or whatever. But now, okay, I succeeded there. But what it also does is, I got smarter. We're always, at the end, we're evaluating and then we're readjusting. So let's say you had a horrible week. Maybe you were sick, or maybe work was busy, and your goal was to run 25 miles, and you get to the end of the week and all of a sudden you realize, you know what? I only ran 20 miles. Now, most people will look at that and say, screw it, I failed. I'm going to wait till next year or next month or whatever. But you didn't hit that one milestone. That's fine. We understand you're not going to be perfect. So now what you can do is readjust. The month's not over. That's the first week. Instead of running 25 miles a week, now I have to run 27 and a half. And you're continually evaluating and then readjusting. And that's how you hit your goal. I mean, it's not set a goal and then never really think about it again until next, November or December. And so many people set annual goals, and that's what happens. I mean, here we are, we're recording this in early January. Would it shock you to know that 90% of people have already failed on their New Year's resolutions?
Oh yeah.
Because that's the stat. We're 2 weeks into the new year. We're 2 weeks away from, hundreds of millions of people setting New Year's resolutions, and 90% of people have failed. But yet everybody does it every year, and they're just hoping for a different, they're doing the same thing over and over. Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But yet people are still looking towards those annual goals, setting those New Year's resolutions and expecting to hit them when, 90% of people don't make it past 2 weeks. That's why, in the IGotSmarter strategy and program, we're setting those 4-week sprints. We're setting, weekly milestones, and we're continuing to evaluate and readjust. That's how you hit goals.
Yeah. So true. And going back to my goal, there was times where I for some reason wasn't able to run my miles that I needed to for that week. And so I did have to readjust. The next week, like you say, I'm like, okay, I got to run 5 miles 3 days this week to make up for that one day I didn't run or whatever. Right. And you can always readjust. And I think so many people do, they mess up one time and they're like, oh, it's done. There's no way I'm reaching this goal. And they give up, they stop. Like, like you said, this time of year, people are like, I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to go to the gym, right? January 1st, man, that gym is packed. And by the 3rd week of January, it's hardly anybody again. And it's because people decide like, oh, I missed a day. Well, I've already screwed up my resolution or my goal, so I'm just going to stop going. I'm not going to go tomorrow. I'm not going to go the next day because I already messed it up. So why try anymore? And people just give up. And so I like the sprints, and I like the way you talk about how you reevaluate your goals and adjust as you go. But one thing I think that people also need to understand is you need to reward yourself for those milestones that you reach. And give yourself credit, some kudos.
Well,
hey, I read this, I reached this milestone, and give yourself a pat on the back. Say, hey, I did this. This is cool. It feels good. Cause like you say, you get that dopamine hit, right?
That's part of the IGotSmarter program too, is every goal is associated with a self-imposed reward or a self-imposed consequence. Because what we found at IGotSmarter is that there's 2 types of people there. There's people who will run towards, a reward, but there's also people who will run away from pain. And so every goal that we set, every one of these 30-day sprints, we're setting a self-imposed reward. So for instance, a lot of people want to get to a certain amount of weight, and we don't talk about we write our goals all in the positive. We write our goals as if they've already happened. And there's a lot of science behind that, again, with our mind. So let's say your goal is, it's February 7th, and then I weigh 190 pounds by, eating healthy and intermittent fasting and working out 5 days a week, and that's your goal. And so come February 7th, maybe my reward, if I hit 190 pounds, is that I'm going to go out and buy myself a new pair of jeans. And, I'm working towards that. And then maybe if I don't hit 190 pounds, maybe my self-imposed consequence is that I'm going to record myself talking on YouTube shirtless, and for 2 minutes, giving a 2-minute talk shirtless, and post it on all of my social media. Now, I think, if you really set those consequences and those rewards, that's going to inspire you. That's going to motivate you, because you're either running towards, a reward, or you're running away from that pain that you don't want. And another thing that we do at IGotSmarter is we have what we call success partners. And through our app, you're able to invite a success partner who sees what you're doing real time, whether you're doing your morning or your evening ritual, when you check off a goal to do, or you hit a milestone. They're there to help you. And you're seeing when they're doing their stuff, you see when they see when you're doing your stuff, you see when they're doing your stuff. And now you guys are kind of, I see, okay, oh man, he just did his morning ritual. I haven't done mine. I need to get in there and do it. And you can give them kudos, and what we found, you're 95% more likely to achieve your goals if you have somebody who's, knows that you're doing it and is there to support you and give you those kudos. So IGotSmarter has patched a lot of these holes that, people have struggled with in achieving their goals, and, things that I've struggled with over the last, 25 years of trying to achieve my goals. And we've tried to kind of patch and help and support any way that we can where we saw that people struggled with their goals, and build it all into this program. And it really is, we've almost made it impossible to fail. The only way you fail is if you quit. And, if these are your lifelong goals, and these are goals that you understand that you want to achieve, then there's no reason to quit. And we just have to continue along. And that's what IGotSmarter does for people.
Awesome. So, yeah, I love that. And, a success partner, a lot of people call them accountability partners, or some kind of accountability, right? But a success partner because that positive peer pressure is a powerful tool to use, because most people don't like to let people down. And sure, we let ourselves down all the time, right? But when you have to get up and say, did I get up and do my exercising this morning? And you have to answer to somebody else, it's easy to tell yourself, I don't care. I didn't, to yourself. But when you have to tell somebody else that you didn't do that, it's a lot harder to swallow that pill, I guess. And so you're more willing, like, okay, I have to tell John or whoever that I didn't do my exercise this morning if I don't get up. So I'm going to get up just because I don't want to be that guy who says I didn't do it. And that's powerful.
Yeah. And I mean, that's all in your mind. And you kind of touched on the fact of accountability, and the reason that we don't call them accountability partners is accountability gets a bad rap. I mean, you have that vision of, oh no, because these goals are your goals. And that's one of the things we teach in IGotSmarter too, is these are your goals. They're not society's goals. They're not even your spouse's goals, your parents' goals, or your kids' goals. These are your goals, and you're not really accountable to anybody but yourself. So our success partners are there to help you be accountable to yourself and to do the things that you said you were going to do. They're there to encourage and support. They're not there to hold you accountable. And it's a whole different mindset whenever you have somebody in the trenches with you that is there to support you and encourage you, not to, smack you on the wrist with a roller when you fail.
Yeah, no, that's super powerful. And having that success partner sounds like an amazing tool for sure. So, so this is an app. IGotSmarter is an app that people can download and they can use to help them reach their goals or create or design the lifestyle that they want, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an app. Everything's in an app, but it's a full-blown goal fulfillment program. And it's all the things that I've gathered over the last 25 years. I mean, I've literally have been obsessed with goals, used them in every area of my life, went to every program I could afford, listened to every book that I could get my hands on, and had all the magazines. But yeah, it's a full blown program, and it walks you through every step, from making sure that you are going after, goals that really matter to you, that are relevant in your life. And, letting you know what price you're going to have to pay, because all goals, we pay the price in advance, and just all those mindsets. But it walks you through everything that, we found that, people fail when they don't know how to write a proper goal or write it in a proper way. And, reviewing your goals every single day through our morning and our evening ritual, and reflecting upon how your day went. And it's really giving you, that opportunity to live life with purpose. And it's giving you that hyper focus, that you're focusing on the things that are going to make a huge difference in your life, next month, next year, next decade, as opposed to just kind of living life and bouncing from one thing to another, which, when you look back in 5 or 10 years, you realize that 99% of the things that you've done made absolutely no difference in your life.
Yeah. Awesome. So where can people find this app? Is it on Android, Apple? Where exactly can they
Yep.
download this app?
Both. It's Apple and Android. You can find it there. You can go to IGotSmarter. In fact, if you go to IGotSmarter, we are offering a 30-day free trial of it. We want to make sure that it's a great fit for you, so you can go there and get a 30 days free. You can go to NelsonTressler.com. There you can find all the information on IGotSmarter. And you can also find the Unlucky Sperm Club, You're Not a Victim of Your Circumstance, but a Product of Your Choices book, which can also be found on Amazon as well.
Awesome. Yeah. And I for one, am super interested in checking out the book, because I we are a product of our choices and not of our circumstances. Tony Robbins says that life happens for you, not to you, right? So we definitely have a choice, and that's Viktor Frankl's entire premise of his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Coming from a Holocaust survivor who basically, faced the most terrible circumstances a human being possibly could face, and was able to find meaning and make decisions in his life that brought him still a sense of purpose and meaning in life. And so it doesn't matter what our background is, what our circumstances are. And I think this is, sorry, I'm just trying to sum up to what probably the book is about, right? That we can choose what we want in life, completely independent of what we came from. We still have a choice, and we can use our decisions to create the life that we want. So
yeah, I mean, you've hit on a lot of, we have on NelsonTressler.com, we have a free 15 philosophies that will change your life. And one of those is things only have the meaning that you're willing to give them. And you talked about, Viktor Frankl and, being stuck in a concentration camp, and what meaning was he giving that? And that was one of the strategies that, the philosophies that really changed my life was, what meaning am I going to give anything? And I truly believe, we get to assign meaning to everything that happens to us. And if you're creative enough and you look hard enough, you're going to find out a way to give almost everything in your life a positive meaning. And if you get to assign that meaning, why on earth would you, settle to give it a negative meaning? Because it doesn't further your life and help you out. So those, go to NelsonTressler.com and get those free 15 philosophies, because they're life-changing.
awesome. Yeah. And I'm going to drop the link in the description of this podcast and on YouTube, so that people can also find that, as well as where they can go to download the app. And I got smarter, so that you can check that out. Take advantage of that 30-day trial. That's awesome. I'm going to go check it out for sure. And yeah, the Unlucky Sperm Club, I'm going to go. I'm assuming I can find it on Amazon as well. So I'm probably going to go find a copy of it, get it. And I've heard bits of your story, but I'm so interested in hearing the rest of the story and what the outcome. Obviously, I know the outcome is that you're successful. You're a great coach. You're doing amazing things to help people reach their goals and success in life. So,
yeah, there's definitely a few twists and turns in there, from the first page of some of the struggles that I ended up having later in life. So yeah, it's a good read. It's getting great reviews. It's got 5 stars with, more than 50 reviews on Amazon. So we're happy with how it came out.
Perfect. So I always like to finish my discussions with this one question, and that is, if there was 1 to maybe 3 things that you would say somebody needs to do to unleash the greatness within themselves, what would those 1 or 3 things be?
Well, the first thing, we kind of touched on this, is start where you're at. I mean, a lot of us want all the traffic lights, to our success to all be green, but that's not the way life is. So start where you're at and start going. I saw a quote, in the last couple of weeks, that fear kills more dreams than failure ever will. So fear only exists in your brain. It's not anywhere else but in your brain. So learn how to kind of gauge that fear and understand that where it's coming from. But yeah, start where you're at, and it's okay to be scared. Just don't let it stop you.
Yeah. Awesome. Push through that fear. And yeah, fear. I love that quote about the fear kills more dreams than anything, because it's so true. And we let fear rule so much of our mind, right? What's the horrible thing that's going to happen? Well, worst thing that's going to happen if you don't go live on Facebook is you don't go live on Facebook. But if you do go live on Facebook, you might touch somebody's life and share your story or whatever, right? There's a million reasons why we let fear impact our life. But if we can push through that fear, and it's through that fear and pushing through it that real growth and real success starts to happen. And so I love that. I love those little points and strategies that you just shared. So thank you for sharing those. Any last final words that you want to leave before we?
No, I appreciate you having me on. It was a great conversation. I'm all fired up, ready to go after my goals. So thanks for having me on, and looking forward to a great, 2021.
Nelson, I appreciate your time and your insight and the conversation. Everybody go and find the links. Go get your free 30-day trial of IGotSmarter, the app, and start setting your goals. Go out there and make a difference in not only your life, but those around you, because it is that ripple effect that we talked about at the very beginning of the episode. And you can be the impact and the change in the world today. So go out there, make your difference, unleash the greatness within yourself. And thank you so much again, Nelson, for being on.
Appreciate it. Thank you.